So I'm going to tell you a story about perhaps a solution as I found it. I'm going to take you back when I introduced myself and give you a full picture. You'll have some affinity with it as well. So I know I've got a time constraint because, to be honest, it usually takes 6 hours, but we'll condense it to less than that. And you can ask questions as long as you like. Yeah, so farming, has been a lot of cycles and it hasn't been easy. But I'm going to take you back and give you a little bit of my history. First of all, we must understand the root cause before you can work on a root solution. It's simple. In my whole career, I think, I'll introduce myself. I was born and bred in Pupu, only went to Pupu High. I left school before I was 15 because I was out of there, I was in the top stream. But I was mad about animals. I had animals before I left school. And by the time I was 19, before that, funny enough, I reminisce, I come past your rugby field and I got one of my strongest lessons in life, my first rep game, Manipota versus Taumanui, and I was 15, most of my mates in that team were up to 18. So I was fairly hardened but naive. First scrum went down, then it went up like that, and your hooker was lying on the ground. I thought, I was shocked. The other guys were quite happy. They said, that's called psychology. So I learned a lot that day. That's the one lesson I learned that day. So we'll talk about the root solution as I add a bit more description to myself. I was born and bred on a family farm, but at 19 I purchased my own farm. Now there's a few pointers you can take on the way through here and just note them mentally. The first one, I borrowed 100% to buy my first farm. That was a motivator for me. I knew I couldn't afford to make a mistake. So it got me looking over the farm gate. And I was reluctant, I was naive. I'm back up in the fern country in the Maiaroa. So that forced me to seek out people, which now I'll refer to as I go through, about mentors in my life. And they're so important to have around you. So farmed happily on, 1972, I got married in 68. So 64 I went on the farm, 68 married. I was into farming in a big way. Breeding, I always bred animals right from a little tacker. So I had my blank sheet when I went on my own. And I guess the rest is history, and that's why I'm standing here. So farmed away happily, expanded, 2 more blocks to make up 760 acres, then another 1,000 acres of rough land, 4 paddocks. Developed that, and then the 80s hit. And it's so significant, everything in life has a consequence. And we're sitting here today with a lot of issues out there because of what happened in 1985. And funny enough, last night, the wheel turned. I don't know if you watched the TV today. The change. I'll come to that later.
Just to add to that, there's you and Colin and Jim, I think, and myself. I had a discussion group in the early 80s.
Yep.
And all I'm saying to you is we went through that time.
Exactly.
And there's been nothing like it since.
No, and there's a lot of farmers that when you started farming you thought that was normal. We experienced probably the best time in New Zealand development post-war. I was born in 1945, so I grew up in the 50s and 60s, and this was, it was awesome. So the history is good to understand where we can go. If you don't understand that, we're semi-lost. So in the 70s I did quite well. Funny enough, sustainable farming is an interesting thing. It's had a lot of names. Holistic farming. When I was farming, it was rotational grazing. And that's key. I perfected it fairly much, and I got an award for it. I won an AC Cameron Award for New Zealand. So I guess I'm just flagging that to say, the systems were working real well. I always had the optimal type animal. I had a passion about that. I'm going to talk about that today as a main cause of a solution out there financially. So that tidies up a little bit of stuff. Come to 1980s. Now it's crucial what happened there. Our lives changed. A lot of farmers lost their farms. Quite a few took their lives. And I'm going to talk about it because I know about it and I know how close you can get to it. That's how bad it was. What happened last night, you guys are not going to experience. You were on the track, the wheel was turning, but you're not going to experience that now because of what happened last night in America. But I'll come to that and stitch it into my story.
You're teasing us a lot, aren't you?
That's why I said what you're going to hear today is probably not what you expected. I've given over 500 odd seminars and talks and business meetings, and you'll see what I actually do physically as well. I'm not just a talker, I'm a doer. So there's a significant thing happened in '85 that changed what we're doing on farms. It's to do with science. We know the draconian, we had Labor come in and we thought, you'll be here for 3 years, look after urban people, and then you get kicked out. That's what happened previous, but we know what happened then. They unbundled New Zealand. But particularly for farming, the government said, the minister of the day, the government said to Science World, now listen about this, we funded our scientists 100% up till '85. They were classified as the best grassland farmers in the world. And of course we are probably the engine room of grassland farming, but I've been to other countries, I'll talk about that as well. But the fact is, they said, okay, this is the way it's going to be. We're going to fund you 2/3, you go and find the other third. Guess who funded it? Anyone got any answers?
Farmers. Taxpayers.
Big pharma and big corporate. From that day on, our science was compromised, it was bought. Sadly, and you guys have grown up with that bought science.
I wonder if anyone saw that article by Doug Edmeades in the New Zealand Farmer. Did you see that?
Yeah, I read that.
These our era equivalent example of what happened to science in the last.
So you see, it's a fact. So I went on to form my own science foundation because of that. That'll come into the story as well. Because we couldn't trust the advice we were receiving. And it goes right through. I had 3 children go through Massey University, agricultural type degrees, business and marketing and whatever. And that was the most difficult time for my wife and I when our kids went there. We said, we hope we've done enough. And thankfully we had, just. You see it in our grandies right now. Okay, so I didn't know enough in '85. Once it got to '88 and we had the big crash, I nearly lost my farm. A lot of peers lost theirs. They all went back like this, and I said, what the hell's going on? I'm a very curious guy. That hurt, but why? Always ask for why. So I did, but I didn't know enough. So I got involved off the farm. Put a suit on, I represented Federated Farmers in Wellington. Didn't go down for a gold watch though. I went down to see how systems worked. And I worked it out, and some of those systems still working for me right now, the good ones. But I recognise the bad ones as well. And the storyline started to form. Okay, so 1993, so that's 88 to 93, 5 years, I studied agriculture, didn't go to university. I was in 3 breed societies, know how they work. Judge and inspector of the lot, I was the president of one. I know how the whole system works, so I did my forensic work. I use that word because someone endowed me with a name, forensic geneticist. You may appreciate that as we go on. It's only about finding out the nuts and bolts, eh? Forensic accountant, forensic policeman who researches the murder scene, same thing. And it was a murder scene, eh? We shouldn't joke, but you've got to have a sense of humour, otherwise I would not have survived. So that was fine, I formed a scientific foundation. So this is where my mentors came in. I met a number of people in my life. I invited 11 of them to sit around the table with me, and we represented every segment that hit your farm. Why did we do that? Because we were completely independent. I said before we couldn't trust the advice that was out there, but I trusted these people. Not one of the 11 turned me down, and away we went. Had a forensic accountant, that word again. 4 of the scientists, I didn't finish telling you about the funding. One of my mentors was Dr. Clive Dalton. Some of you will remember him. Very good guy. Still living too, 96 or something. Amazing person. He got his buddies, they went to Wellington and said, Minister, this is not going to work for New Zealand agriculture. You know what the minister did? He went like that and said, sorry buddy, this is the way it's going to be. So Clive and his buddies just looked at him and said, we resign right now. So we had a brain drain. I make that point right there. We lost our top scientists as well as the funding was compromised. See what happened?
28 researchers were stopped overnight.
There you go.
Out of Ruakura, Clive told me.
They closed down a hill country research unit. Hang on, we're hill country farmers.
Annual field days on there?
Brilliant, they were brilliant. Best university is practical. So that's what I'm about. I've pulled all that good stuff together and away I've gone. So okay, then in 1998, I got a call from Australia, a beef farmer. He said, I got a very good herd, and he wasn't boasting. He said, something's missing. He said, I think it's what you're doing. How soon can you get to Aussie? I said, as soon as you put an airline ticket on the table, buddy. He put 2 down and 2 of us went. And that started a business in Australia that developed in quite a huge way. I've had 96 international trips. 35 of them, funny enough, to another country. I was in Western Australia, and I'll shorten all this up. I've got to shorten the whole thing up. I love telling a good story, and they're true stories, actually. And the South African guy walked in when I was meeting with Aussie farmer, and he said, you are coming to South Africa. You don't get invited by a South African, you're told what to do. So eventually I went because he pestered the brains out of me for 6 months. And I had 35 trips there, 3 years and 3 months of my life, doing what I do on Robbie's farm and John's farm here, sorting up animals for a solution. So I'm just staking a position that I've got a good fix on the optimal animal. I've taken out a few bugs, the breed debate. That's helped dissect our industry up into pieces. It's chronic. It's about the optimal animal by description that is in every breed. The breed is your choice. Wow. It's your choice. So let's find the optimal ones in each of your choice. That's what I do. That's what keeps me going. Because of the results. So let's get on. I'll now fast track a few things. So we've talked about, I've enlightened the root cause of why it's difficult right now, and we're going to talk about the solution. And you guys, most of you, some of my clients are here today, but also you've got the sustainable group, and that's part of it. It's only part of it. And we get various signals that come from that science as well that's now suspect, and we're seeing it that way as well. Nothing to be fearful out there. We're about controlling our business. Sorry, I'll just turn this phone off. Okay. So the root solution is about the system we're going to talk about, the optimal animal. It's got economic fitness and environmental fitness. That's what you guys are about, big time. And financial viability. There's the whole package. It's just like the animal is a bundle of traits, main traits that fit together in a special way, not a single trait at all. That's how our industry has been run, and we're going to talk about that. It's not a single part of our whole farming operation at all. It's how it all fits together from the soil right through. Sustainability, the whole thing has to make sense. But there's one thing that's been missing, is the optimal animal. With all good intentions, the main cause, and it's no different in Australia, South Africa, or here, or Taumarunui, or Tuatapere, where I met Joe. I'm actually being filmed for this as well, so feel free, even when you ask questions, it's all friendly fire. And to just give you a bit of confidence, the Falkirk plan is sitting on the minister's desk right at this moment. So that's how important this is. Right, I'll run you through. Right, what the problem is, we've got a high cost debt system. True? Not much of a profit line there, eh? It's really high cost. So we're talking about wealth creation. So let's get on to it. There's our plan. I'm just going to brief a lot of this stuff, but as you can see, we're focused, and I've highlighted on the fact I can go across any animal that's got a skeleton, which I'll go into, and a physiology, temperament and behaviour. Hang on, that makes up the whole animal, doesn't it? Not just milking ability or fertility. And the outcomes from this is longevity and prepotency, which I'll talk about a little bit later. That gives them long life and high productivity for a lot longer. So Falkirk is proven to add value. Everything we do is about adding value, and we've proven that with Robbie's and John's animals here, what we've done in 2 years. And you'll see some of the live animals. Restructuring the beef herd, which, yeah, we'll just show you about that in the flesh. So part of the talk can transmit onto the live animal. So you can read a lot, and it'll save time. So there's my history. I've covered most of it, but there's some important parts here. I was one of the first to use the animal recording system in New Zealand. It was developed in 1970, and in 1972 I started a Perindale stud and went straight into the recording system with latest technology. Well, it was fine. It was simple, and it just sorted out data. That's what we needed, rather than the old pen. You know, pen and ink on a wet day doesn't go too well. Okay, I was also involved in the lime trial. It's still on my property. Really interesting. I also learnt a lot there about science. It was a compromised science. It got shut down. Results were positive for us. So lime applied and measured through animal productivity, and it was an outcome. It was a good 10%. But it was closed down and wasn't printed for 15 years. 15 years. That's evidence, it's there. The trial, we still call it the lime trial, because it is and was. So I've covered a lot of that stuff right through to the 80s, right?
Now what was that 85 water trial that was challenged?
You know, like we'll start here. Back in those days, we had really robust genetics. We had Romney was our fundamental base, and we bred, thanks to Sir Geoffrey Perrin, one of my mentors. He bred a sheep for the hills. What a guy! What an incredible person. And then we had the Coopworth, of course, but they're all interrelated. The two were half, and one was a whole. Of the two, the Perindale was a Romney Cheviot cross, and our Coopworth breeder, you got a couple here today. The Coopworth is a Romney Border Leicester cross, okay? But the Border Leicester is a crossbred. Border Leicester. Border Cheviot, English Leicester. Two extreme animals. So I used to say in our discussion group, that was post-72 when I won that award, we set up the first modern king cunt in those days, discussion group in Pew, which was quite powerful. And we used to have all this debate because we had the three breeds in there. One day I said, what are you guys arguing about? Our breeds are incestuous. Let's go for the best. But the arguing still carried on. It was a bit tempered, but I make my point. Let's get some of the issues out of the way and focus on the root solution.
Just on that lime trial, Ian,
Yep.
Was that the one that Toxopaeus did, was it?
You got it. John Toxopaeus just about killed him. I saw, now you know about it, his boss arrived one day into my house, unannounced, when we were having lunch with John, the scientist. He's such a loyal guy, amazing guy. We were just having a break, having lunch, and in walks his boss. And I couldn't understand why this guy was talking down to John, who was sitting behind my table, like O'Connor. Like he's standing here, never sat down. He just walked in and away went at the scientist. I didn't know what the hell was going on. But I thought something was wrong, and I found out, of course, later. It's part of my story. See what's happening? That was the start of the change of the drive by big pharma and big corporate. Seriously. Am I on the right track? Adding value through effective systems, environmental fitness, economic fitness. Okay, there's the whole package. I just want to get you into that rather than the single trait or the single function that we're working on. Because one impacts the other, and we can advantage one with the other. But the centre point is the animals because it generates your profit or not. And there's not a lot of big profit out there at the moment. I've been to the fielding sale 3 times in the last couple of months, and you should all go and have a look. It's disgusting. The animals that have come from the hills and endeavour to be sold. It's shameful.
In what way?
They're poor, short life, so I don't try to not talk in the negative vein, but I'm making a point. I want to talk in the positive, okay? So here it is here, everything involved. So 1 or 2 here will be happy. Soil, herbage, livestock, market specification. I've been right through to market. I've branded product. I've been to market with red meat in South Africa, proved the point what marketing is. You know what it is? I've got a one-liner. Quality sells itself. Whether it's a live animal or wool. Where's our wool man? Falkirk has got branded wool. Hi, Judy. Branded wool in the market right now, and it's permanent. Been there before, but we're making a statement as well. Also branded live animals. Just this last year at the fairs, we went through a couple of sales and identified top lines that we could pick to put into our system, but didn't get many. So I'll kick along. One of my first overheads, and it's still relevant today. This was made in '93. Farming is a big knotted mass in the middle here. So to get some sense out of it, we broke away the commercial reality up the top and then all the statutory stuff down the bottom. And of course it came quite clear. Our next step was to go direct from farm to market and listen. And I've got a record here, I've got the volumes here about the wool industry we can talk about a little later. I was one of the designers of Wool Corporation in 2003, you might remember. So, and all that knowledge was gathered with our own revenue. Haven't had $1 of grant or loans, but I paid levies for 64 years. And technically that money has been used against us as an industry, and I'll tell you about that later as well. So we broke out and it gave some clarity. Here's commercial reality up here, went to market. That's why I was invited offshore as well, because of the clear plan, and it worked in both other countries. They had the same problems as well. Isn't it interesting? The result was the same here as Australia and South Africa because they are using the same systems of animal selection and the same dictate. Crucial components for life. And they've all been bastardised, haven't they? They're actually good for us. You take the opposite of what we've been told from the other side and you'll be right on the money. I'll enlarge on. We know about 3 waters, they almost got that. If they'd got 3 waters through, they had us. You control the water, you know what happens? For our livestock as well. That's why we're fencing up a lot of stuff, and I agree with a lot of environmental stuff. I'm an environmentalist as well. But I've got the whole picture, and the animal is part of it. It's been long before humans were on this planet. We had animals that existed with the environment. For sure. I'll talk to you later about the collagen. It's so exciting. There's a potential for adding value off your cattle hides with collagen. The 4 F's, fairly crucial. Some fundamentals here about fight, flight, feed, and fornication.
You sure about spelling that?
Well, that's your choice. It's all about our choice. But that's the rules of life. Let's get back from the high rises and all the tar seal and all that crap and come back to some fundamentals. We just see another little generation, about two of them here. Look at this. See? They just didn't fall out of the sky. It's another generation, and we've got a responsibility, and I take that on board too. I'm 80 in 4 months' time. So I've seen a few cycles, some good ones and some ugly ones, and we can make it better. There we are, interface with nature. So I'm just going to brief this. Animals interface with nature, and there I'm burning up some emissions up there on my motorbike. Right, defining the optimal animal. Let's get on to it. Multi-trait for a start. I've inferred that already. It's not a single trait at all. I've got some clients here who give evidence of that and how it's changed their farming operation, let alone Robbie, the guest, the host here today. Structural correctness. No different than building the shed. What's the first thing you do? You put up the structure. How long's the shed been here, Robbie? Doesn't look like falling down. It's very well made. He's a builder. I'm a measurer. The builder's a measurer. Okay, you measure anything. Soil. That's what it is. Not some theoretic, trumped up jargon. So structural correctness and composition, talk more about that. From then, out of that you get functionality, number 1. You've got to have functional animals. A lot of animals are made wrong and they're not living. They haven't got longevity. Why aren't we having 5 and 6 year old fares like we used to have? You just answer that question.
7 and 8 year olds, seriously?
You know, when I was a young farmer, we had huge sales. Tamanui sale, Tekawiri, Piu, thousands of sheep. The Waikato would come and buy a 5 and 6 year olds. Yeah. Take them to the Waikato, get 2 years out of them. Yeah. That's called longevity. It's also called economics.
And when you work the budget through, longevity can actually add a lot to your bottom line.
Huge. It's a big plank of Falkirk. I've got to say that. Hope I'm proving a point. But attitudinal, I pick animals, so 3-dimension is length, breadth and depth, okay? There's 2 more dimensions I've learnt over my career. There's 2 more, so it's 5-dimensional. Is behaviour and temperament. There's some safety in that, if you get the right animals, but also it's the use of the dry matter that's created. The efficient animal, proved on a science trial at Invermay recently, backed up what I've known for years, that the efficient animal, optimal animal, eats less food than the suboptimal, like up to 24%. That's the best science trial done in my career, and I told them so. I said 40 years, I was a bit, just 40 is a long time. I said, it's the best science you've done in 40 years. And it was a good trial. I knew every gram that went through every animal. So the result, see, good measurement. Right. So there's the 5D. Maternal traits, you'll see I got some overheads coming, some pictures. Where I focus on, I'll just go over that for the moment. Strong immune system. Now we're talking about animal health. It's one of the biggest issues out there right now, and we're all doing the left and right field stuff. What's the main problem? Drench resistance and facial eczema. I'll enlighten that a bit further as well. Fibre characteristics. Why have I always been involved in the wool? It's fascinating. It's the best fibre you can ever see. created by nature. But it's part of a survival kit. Nice thatching wool, or hair, or whatever, but it's a type of wool. It sheds the elements. I pioneered measuring skin thickness with ultrasound. I use ultrasound a lot, so I'm a measurer of a live animal as well. We've done a lot of work on that. And subsequent to that, I got into learning about collagen, and I'll come to that as well. It's a whole storyline, not one thing. Maybe quite complex, but I'm filling you in quickly on a story because it's important you understand, because things are changing. How it applies on farmers, you'll see, is quite simple. Quite simple, but it's good to understand what we're going to do out there. Survival characteristics, vital, eh? Longevity, most important trait there is. If you live for a long time and you're fit and able, you've got high productivity, you've got more young stock to save, to sell at a high price. What's happening now, we've got shortgevity and we're putting more. Dairy herds are a classic. You've got so many replacements going in. How many lactations of a dairy cow in New Zealand? Does anyone know? 2.4. Exactly. Are you told that in the media? But that's the truth. Man, back me up.
How many for sheep, do you know?
Well, from our work, it's well under 5. And I'll show you why. No, we'll show you where you can go. And then the last word, nice purple patch. What's it say? It's profitable. So just briefly, when I see a live animal, I see a skeleton. This explains an awful lot here. And a form. Stock selection, it's quite artistic. It's got form. Wow. Just think back how you selected your partners. We all differ a little bit on what we see, but it doesn't matter. Either gender, doesn't matter. It's true, I'm frank. I love this stuff. It's about form and function and hopefully longevity. My wife and I nearly had ours cut off just the other day, but so we value life even more. That's why I got a lot of passion in me right today, because I'm looking at people. I want you to get to 80 plus doing what you love, because I'm doing what I love. So I'll define that more on the live animal, but yep, it's very graphic. A different sort of animal. We've got a thickness of body. A lot of modern animals haven't got that. They've got a little wee neck sticking on a funny looking body. And I'll talk by description on the live and the differences. That'll just give you an introduction. Hicks Bay just served 40 cows, looking for some more.